Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, I thought let us begin by reading a little something from Srila Prabhupada. This is from 4th Canto, Chapter 13, purport to verse, Chapter 2, the verse and purport is text 46. King Anga, the father of Maharaj Vena. King Anga, therefore, thinking in terms of detachment, accepted his bad son as a good impetus for detachment from home life. Then the king thought, a bad son is better than a good son, because a good son creates an attachment for home, whereas a bad son does not. A bad son creates a hellish home from which an intelligent man naturally becomes very easily detached. Purport. The king began to think in terms of attachment and detachment from one's material home. According to Prahlad Maharaj, the material home is compared to a blind well. If a man falls down into a blind well, it is very difficult to get out of it and begin life again. Prahlad Maharaj has advised that one give up this blind well of home life as soon as possible and go to the forest to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Vedic civilization, this giving up of home by Vanaprastha and sannyas is compulsory. But people are so attached to their homes that even up to the point of death, they do not like to retire from home life. King Anga, therefore, thinking in terms of detachment, accepted his bad son as a good impetus for detachment from home life. He therefore considered his bad son his friend, since he was helping him become detached from his home. Ultimately, one has to learn how to detach oneself from attachment to material life. Therefore, if a bad son, by his bad behavior, helps a householder to go away from home, it is a boon. One has to understand one's position in family or worldly life. That is called intelligence. One should not remain always trapped in family life to satisfy his tongue and genitals in association with a wife. In such a way, one simply spoils his life. According to Vedic civilization, it is imperative to give up the family at a certain stage, by force if necessary. Unfortunately, so-called followers of Vedic life do not give up their family even at the end of life, unless they are forced by death. There should be a thorough overhauling of the social system, and society should revert to the Vedic principles, that is, the 4 Varnas and the 4 Ashramas. Well, there you have a sweet introduction to Prabhupada's, some of Prabhupada's thoughts about householder life and giving up householder life. Of course, the householder life in Krishna consciousness is supposed to be congenial to the service of Krishna, favorable to the service of Krishna. But even then, retirement and eventually renunciation are wanted. So in in pursuing the pattern we've been following for the last couple of sessions, I thought I'd open things up and see what you might like to say, or what thoughts are on your mind, what you might have read that's relevant to these topics, what thoughts you might have had in considering them, what actions you might be contemplating or taking, or anything else relevant to the subject of this Vanaprastha adventure.
Maharaj, I just wanted to add, just to keep things a little orderly, everybody has the option to unmute, but it might be good if you do the raise hand thing or type in your question to the chat so we can proceed in order.
Okay, we can be orderly.
And I'm new at co-hosting, so if I make any mistakes, please forgive me in advance. So there's a question from Vamsidhari Gopal Prabhu.
Okay, let's see. I didn't turn my chat box on. Is it fine if someone not feels attached and affectionate toward family, or detachment with affection is more important? If yes, how to move from unaffectionate detachment to affectionate detachment? Well, if we don't have affection, there's no need to develop it at the mature stage. If there's no affection in family life will be not very happy. But in the mature stage, if we've come to, toward the end of our householder life and we're not feeling much affection, well, count as a blessing. Why do we have to say, no, at this late stage, before I leave, I have to develop affection? Affection will be connected with attachment. We're attached to that toward which we're affectionate. So somehow, if we're detached, count it as a blessing that somehow there wasn't much affection. So good, let me go. Not that I have to first develop affection and then go, just go. Is that all right? Okay, Shara has a question.
Hi, Bala Maharaj. Thank you. So I'm at an age where I have a lot of grihastha desires, like a big house or nice house, or I'm looking at all these things as I'm getting to that age, especially since looking at Alachua and settling down and being around devotees. But I also really enjoy these classes, and I understand that sooner than I realize, I'm going to have to be detached from those things, or I should already be detached from those things, and I'm having a hard time figuring out where a good balance is, where I can still be aware of what my material desires are and where the boundaries are, really.
Well, the Bhagavatam says, Jivasya tattva jigyasa, nartayasya karmabhi, that kamasya nendriya pritir. Life isn't really meant for satisfying so many desires, but it's really meant for self-realization and going back to Godhead. So Prabhupada said one should meet the minimum demands of the senses. It means we don't need to suffer needlessly, but there's no point really, or no benefit in building up more than we need. If we're satisfied with the basic necessities, we'll be happier in the end. What is that? That's austerity in the mode of goodness, to be satisfied. Then life is so much easier. Your bills are lower, your mind is more peaceful, the atmosphere will be more Krishna conscious. You can focus more. If you have to invest your energy, if you invest it in service, you'll be more happy. We want these other things because we think if I have a bigger house, I'll be more happy, I'll be more comfortable. If I have this, if I have that. And of course, no amount of this or that ever really brings happiness. You know, brings something, but not really happiness. But when we serve, then there's really happiness. The just simple things, sweeping the temple, doing any service in Krishna consciousness, reading, chanting, taking part in kirtan, that brings happiness. So if we focus on those things, those are our real desires. If we, there's like a mode of life in which we monitor our desires, and we think, well, what about this one? What about that one? What about this one? What about that one? We've got sort of a radar. What about all this desire, that desire? I shouldn't let this one go unmet. I shouldn't let this one go unattended to. But if we turn our attention towards satisfying Krishna's desires, our desires will automatically be satisfied. That doesn't mean I automatically get, all the things on my laundry list, but it means that I become happy with the things that I have or the things that Krishna sends me. And that's so much better. It's not just a question of being artificially austere but it's when we're engaged in the service of Krishna and we have happiness there, then those other things become less important. We can have it, we cannot have it, it doesn't matter so much. So then it becomes easier to live with less, really, with what I need to live comfortably enough, but not to extend things more and more, thinking this will make me happy, that will make me happy. So Prabhupada says, enough to keep body and soul together. That's not really a whole heck of a lot. But in a place like Alachua, you can have a little land, you can grow your own food. There's a happiness in here we have a garden in Tuaco. One householder couple has started a garden and it's hugely productive. Flowers and vegetables, so much. And it's a source of happiness just to be engaged in growing those things and offering those things to Krishna. And it's not expensive, it's rather it's saving money. And there's a happiness there. It's a simple thing, just growing a garden, but it's so pleasant, really, such a nice occupation. It makes the heart happy, it makes the mind satisfied, it makes it easier to think of Krishna for whom we're doing these things. So it's, it's a hobby, you can say. But most hobbies are sort of, well, they're like a diversion. But this hobby is one where the fruits, literally fruits or vegetables, can be offered to Krishna. So it's such a nice thing. How far does that go in answering your question?
That was very helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maharaj, I call gardening or farming Krishna consciousness from the ground up.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
That's great, Tulsi Priya. I love that.
Krishna consciousness. I know Arnanda Dulal Prabhu, who's now moved to Mayapur. He was a doctor, but that was his happiness, growing some simple vegetables, watering them and offering to Krishna. It's such a nice thing.
After so many years, my husband just started a garden this year. I mean, we had one about 20 years ago in Fort Lauderdale when we were living in Fort Lauderdale, and that was kind of my project. And it's a little bit hard to grow in southern Florida when you don't know what you're doing. I started in the summer, which was a mistake. But it's such a nice thing for a relationship also, you know, because I'll go out there. It's basically his baby, but I'll go out there and harvest or do a little weeding. And he always feels much more favorably disposed towards me when I go out and help him in the garden. And it's just a really nice, you know, it's a nice bonding experience. And yes, as you say, it reminds you of Krishna.
And then in Alachua, you have preaching opportunities. There's so much opportunity for service, for spreading Krishna consciousness, for being engaged in the service of the deity, for hearing and chanting. So for those who are looking for it, there are wonderful opportunities there. Those who are looking for it, there are wonderful opportunities everywhere, but especially in Alachua, so many devotees. So the more we take advantage of that sort of good fortune, the more the other things resolve themselves. Krishna helps us. Some other things.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tulasi Priya Mataji. Thank you for your service. Maharaj, do you mind if my contributions to today's class is based on what I find in Wikipedia about Vanaprastha? I have a few questions.
Well, yeah, all right. We can give it a critical reading because Wikipedia has no authority.
Okay, okay, thank you. Maharaj, what calls my attention related to what I'm reading is that they say here that Vanaprastha is meant for taking an advisory role. What is the meaning of this?
Well, of course, it's hard for me to give a commentary on what stuff we find in Wikipedia means, but we've discussed that in the Vanaprastha ashram, one is mature. Generally, one adopts the Vanaprastha ashram the age of 50 or thereabouts. So one has his whole life behind him, and one is in a good position to advise others, especially the grahastas who can benefit from the Vanaprastha's experience. So perhaps that's what they mean, but I can't really say because again, it's not Shastra, it's Wikipedia.
Maharaj, they also say, and gradually withdraws from the world. I have a question related to this. Is it that a Vanaprastha is prohibited of going on for book distribution?
No. It's neither Vanaprasthas nor sannyasis. Withdraw from the world means to withdraw from activities for sense gratification. But it doesn't mean that one has to go to withdraw from activities for spreading Krishna consciousness or serving Krishna. That should be increased.
Yes, they also say, but a man or woman may choose to skip householder stage and enter Vanaprastha directly after brahmacharya student stage as a prelude to sannyasa, ascetic, and spiritual pursuits. I have an old question related to this. The idea that a brahmachari who doesn't want to get married, is it that he is allowed to go directly for sannyasa?
Yes, there's no need of Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is for the householders as an intermediate stage for gradually getting free from the complexities and attachments of householder life. If one is a brahmachari, he never got into those things, so he doesn't have to do anything to get out of them. So he can either remain brahmachari or go directly to sannyas. There's no need of the Vanaprastha ashram for the brahmacharis.
And my last contribution based on Wikipedia, it goes like this. They say here that Vanaprastha stage is considered as a transition phase from a householder's life with greater emphasis on art and kama, wealth, security.
Greater emphasis on what?
Sorry?
Greater emphasis on what?
Artha
Artha.
and kama, between parentheses, wealth, security, pleasure, and sexual pursuits.
Yeah, their grammar is a little funny, but yeah, the householder life means those things, and Vanaprastha means getting free from them.
And goes on saying, to one with great emphasis on moksha, spiritual liberation.
Yeah, except for the devotees, we're less interested in moksha. We're interested in devotional service because moksha will come automatically in the package. We don't have to separately look for moksha. If one is engaged in the service of Krishna, then moksha will roll on his feet. Please take me, please take me, please take me. There's no need of separately aspiring for moksha.
Yes, Maharaj, but until today, I do not know the meaning of moksha.
Moksha means mukti, liberation from material existence. And generally generally the impersonalists, of course, take moksha to mean merging with the Supreme. But it means liberation from material existence. And that's wanted. Definitely, we see Dhritarashtra accepted the Vanaprastha life to get free from material entanglement, from the results of his past sins, from all of his illusions that he'd built up over so many years. So he attained moksha. But higher than moksha is bhakti. And for one who's engaged in the devotional service of Krishna, moksha is already automatically attained.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm thinking, and this is sort of out of left field perhaps, but in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when pastime with Haridas Thakur and the prostitute, I don't know where a prostitute fits in the whole spectrum of varnashram exactly, but she renounced her ways and she sold all her property and she shaved her head and she became a renunciate. And I was just wondering, you know, what is the position of ladies who have never been married, have no protection? I guess the prostitute was sort of under the protection of the community after she reformed. But I was just wondering, you know, what is...
I was thinking about that a little bit. We have an upcoming seminar by Vamsidhari Gopal Prabhu in regard to creating some financial order and perhaps some, one would hope, some financial security. But the Vanaprastha life is not dependent on that. It's not that if I've developed a financial cushion, then I can accept the Vanaprastha life, otherwise not. The example that came to my mind, it was the hunter. The hunter who became a devotee by the grace of Narad Muni. The Narad Muni said, stop killing these animals, please. And at least stop half killing them. And the hunter agreed, and then he finally agreed that he would throw away his bow. Narad Muni said, you don't need this, you can throw away that bow. No, then how will I live? Yes, you just plant a tulsi plant and make a little cottage and live in the cottage and worship tulsi. How will I eat? I'll send you food. Don't worry. So what happened? The local people found out that the hunter's become a sadhu. So they were bringing him, they were coming to see, curious or whatever. And they would naturally bring a little contribution. When you go see a saintly person, you bring some grains, something. So they were bringing something so much that Narad Muni, when he saw Narad Muni, yes, everything all right? Yes, everything's all right, but you're sending so much, we don't know what to do with it all. My wife and I can't even use all this. So Krishna arranged. Similarly, others, Krishna can arrange. So that Vanaprastha life means, in part, developing that confidence that Krishna will protect me, Krishna will maintain me. That confidence is wanted. Now, generally, as you said, really for the women, there's not supposed to be independent living, but they should be dependent upon their husbands, or their fathers, then their husbands, then their sons, or in the absence of the sons, then the community elders should take responsibility. The grahastas should take responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I wonder what thoughts are with the Purva and Kamalani today.
You can unmute yourselves if you want to speak. I don't know if they're hearing, but they can unmute themselves if they wish to speak.
Okay.
Well, I had a kind of follow-up question though. Would the reformed prostitute be considered a vanaprastha?
It's an interesting question. She'd be considered like a vairagi, a sadhvi, a person who'd given up the materialistic way of life and had taken up, you could say the equivalent of Vanaprastha.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why not?
Mm-hmm. It's a trivial point, but I was just curious.
And I wonder what other thoughts may be. Oh, Vijay Krishna has his hand up still, or again.
Again.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes.
A few more questions, if I may. Still related with Wikipedia. They say here that Vana means forest, distant land, and Prashta means going to, abiding in, journey to. So my question is, well, they also say the composite word literally means retiring to forest.
Yes.
Maharaj,
Excuse me?
Bhattu Gopal Prabhu just spoke something.
But I didn't hear it.
Please, please unmute when you're ready to ask a question, or raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
But
I will finish my question very quickly for him to speak his question. Maharaj, my question is it related to how rigid Vedic civilization is in terms of demanding from the candidate towards spiritual perfection? So my question is it that a Vanaprastha really needs to go to the forest?
That's what they used to do. Definitely. In previous ages, that's what they did. Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they all went to the forest. The Prithu Maharaj and Archie, his wife, they went to the forest, and many, many others They literally went to the forest and lived on what was available in the forest in order to develop detachment and advancement in spiritual understanding. So in the previous ages, that's what Vanaprastha meant. They would leave home and they would live in the forest. Now, in the present age, we no longer have that strength, and the forests also are hard to find. But Prabhupada says, therefore, one can go to Vrindavan. Vana means forest, so Vrindavana. One can go to Vrindavan, the original forest, the abode of Krishna. And there we have, of course, we built the Krishna Balaram guest house. There are now so many other guest houses there, so many other places to live. So one can sit in Vrindavan or Mayapur. Mayapur is not different from Vrindavan. Chant Hare Krishna, worship the deity, read Prabhupada's books, study, and be engaged in Krishna conscious activities. So that's, Prabhupada suggested that as the practical form of Vanaprastha life in the present age. One can live in Vrindavan. Go in that forest. If you're going to choose a forest, choose the Vrindavan forest. Or any of our Mayapur or our other such places, temples, communities, and be engaged seriously in the service of Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj said, Vanam gatoya dharimashriyeta. What is that? Tat sadhu manye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyam asatgrahat hitvatmapatam griyamandagupam vanam gatoya dharimashriyeta. My dear best of the demons, Asurya Varya, Tat sadhu manya, you've asked me what is the best thing I've learned. This is the best thing. Tat sadhu manya asura varya dehina, for the embodied living being. Sada samud vigna dhyam. Dhyam, what is that? A satgrad. Because he's grasping onto that which has no substantial existence. Asat, that which is temporary, that which is insubstantial. Asat grahat, graha means holding on to, grabbing onto, like grabbing fruits reflected in the water. What is the result of that? Sada samud vigna dhyam. His mind, intelligence, his consciousness, dhi, is sada samud vigna, always agitated. Udvigna means agitated. Samudvigna means thoroughly agitated. The materialists of this world, their minds are always preoccupied. Where's money? How to pay the bills? What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? So many anxieties, so many concerns, so many burdens that they can hardly think of Krishna because their minds are always absorbed in thoughts of material existence. So, sada samud vigna dhyam asagrahat. For them, Prahlad Maharaj says, hitvatma patam griham andhakupam. They should give up this soul-killing, materialistic life, griham andhakupam, as Prabhupada describes the householder life, which is a blind well. When there's a well out in the middle of the field somewhere, covered over with grass, a man or an animal may fall in, not understanding what it is. And then that's death. So this householder life is compared to death. Not that householder life is life, but to die in householder life is not good. That is, to stick to householder life to the very end is not good. So Prahlad Maharaj says, Hitvatma patam grihamandaku. One should get out of this blind well. How is that? Vanam gatoya. Go to the forest and Harimashriyeta. The real thing is not so much the forest. The real thing is taking shelter of Krishna. That's the purpose of the Vanaprastha life, to take full shelter of Krishna. But generally our attention is divided between our family affection, family commitments, family affairs, and the activities of Krishna consciousness. So of course, in householder life, we try to harmonize these two as far as possible. But in the later stage, it's recommended, no, just get out of family life. How is that? Well, do it gradually. You can stay with your wife. You can go to holy places. But with the goal now of detachment, of getting free from the, as Shar was describing in the beginning, you know, you get married, you want to have a nice house, a nice place, a nice this, a nice that. You sort of want to build up a little bit. But Vanaprastha life means winding down, getting free from these things. All right, to whatever extent they were a source of happiness, you've had that opportunity for some years, up to 25 years. But now it's time to pack that in because it's not going to last. And we don't want to die attached to these things, or even to the relationship between husband and wife. That's not going to be eternal. So gradual detachment, that's the theme of the Vanaprastha life.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then Vamsidhari says, we can live in a village or farm community, maybe like-minded Vanaprasthis come together and set up farm communities away from the city. Yes, that's also possible. Although actually Prabhupada meant that for the Grihastas. The Grihastas set up the farm communities and the Krishna conscious villages. And the Vanaprasthas are not so much for running that or establishing that, but they're also meant to retire from that. So as a good first step, one might move from the city to a farm community or a village and like-minded. But generally in those villages, it's not just the Vanaprasthis who are there, but the householders typically are the dominant feature. But yes, the Vanaprasthis can come together and not so much set up farm communities, I would say, but really to talk about Krishna, to share with one another their progress in getting free from material existence and becoming more attached to Krishna. Those would be the engagements. More japa, as Prabhupada instructed one devotee, more japa, more deity worship. Farming would be like a sideline. When you're 50, 60, 70, you're not really meant for serious farming. It's work after all. That's meant for the younger men. But as a step, yes. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes. See it, that would be my thought. No questions from me, Bhadu Gopal says he just changed his device. Okay. Do children have any responsibility in encouraging their parents to take Vanaprastha? Yes. Responsibility or an opportunity. I've mentioned several times our Nanda Dulal Prabhu, who's now in Mayapur. He was a physician living in New Jersey, first Pennsylvania, then New Jersey. And he was really unhappy, actually. He was dragging on in his medical work, but not at all happy there. And I was encouraging him, why don't you go to Mayapur? Why don't you go to Mayapur? But he has two sons, and they were, pushing and sort of encouraging him that don't worry. We'll take care of ourselves. If you need anything, we'll take care of you. They were, we'll make the arrangements. So that's it's very good for the children to take that responsibility for encouraging the parents that don't worry. If there's any need, we can help, but and don't worry about that you have to take care of us. You did that for so many years. Now we're self-sufficient. We can take care of ourselves, and we encourage you. Now you take advantage of the opportunity. Don't worry about us. Worry about going back to Godhead. And if there's any help needed, we're here to help. So don't worry. That's very good for and the additional responsibility that the children in the later stage may take care of the mother. The husband may increasingly become independent, and then the wife may seek protection under the care of her grown children. So that responsibility is very much, Krishna says in 10th canto, that anyone who can take care of elderly parents and fails to do so is only a dead body, although breathing. So that's there. Tulsi Priya, a question. Yes.
Yes, Maharaj. This is maybe a bit speculative, but it seems that, in my mind, there's been this idea that if you have devotee family, devotee spouse, devotee relationships within the family circle or attachments, then what is the need for giving that up? But then I think to myself, on the emotional level, let's say I have a very close relationship with my husband. If I were to give that up or allow him to give me up, there's going to be a big hole in my heart. And what is left to fill that hole would be Krishna. So it seems that on the emotional, psychological, spiritual level, you have to repose your affection somewhere. And if that object of affection is gone, then you have to direct your affection towards Krishna if you're not a fool.
Yes.
And it's very painful to think about, but at the same time, it seems like that's the idea.
This is the big obstacle, of course, a big obstacle in adopting the Vanaprastha life, or especially sannyas life, is that this affection is there between husband and wife. And it's not Maya. We don't say, I remember when Paramananda and Satyabhama joined, they'd already been a couple, but they were thinking that they had to separate now that they were joining the temple. Paramananda said something to that effect, and Prabhupada said, "What's the problem? Don't you like her anymore?" So it's not that we discourage affection between husband and wife in the appropriate stage. In family life, there must be some affection. Not too much, otherwise our spiritual life suffers, but there must be affection, especially affection in service. There must be affection because we're serving together, we're chanting Hare Krishna together. There must be affection. But at the mature stage, even that affection must be cut off. Kunti Devi is praying, please cut off my affection for the Vrishnis and the Pandavas, from my husband's family and my father's family. Why? So that my affection can be completely turned toward you. So that's the theme of life, really. And at a certain stage, the family life is appropriate to help us live in Krishna consciousness. And then in the later stage, detachment. We'll be detached anyway, or cut off anyway. And typically it's the husband who dies first. women live a little longer, and men tend to marry women who are a little younger. So typically it's the husband who dies first. Otherwise, by voluntarily, the husband seeks to detach himself from this very strong connection. Someplace in Bhagavatam, Krishna says that, or it's not Krishna says, someone says, that if anyone can give up attachment for that deep attachment for his wife, he conquers the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because that attachment is so strong. And of course, in Krishna consciousness, it's more civilized, it's less intense because we are cultivating a spiritual way of life, but still there's an attachment. And we want to transfer these attachments toward Krishna. Sankarshan says, is that all right? Yeah. Sankarshan says, I know a devotee doctor who's well up in age, and his attitude is his service to ISKCON is providing financial support to various projects. So he wants to stay on working, the battlefield of working, until the fag end of life. Yeah, I know of devotees who are in such circumstances. They're earning very well, and they think this is my service. And all right, for some time, but there are higher engagements. Money will come. The Krishna consciousness movement will get money. Krishna consciousness movement will get money. There's no shortage of money. So at the mature stage, we're thinking, just as one's thinking that how will my wife live without me? Similarly, how will these projects go on if I don't give money? But at the mature stage, one should free oneself, even like Yudhisthira was thinking, how will Dhritarashtra go on? How will he live? We're taking care of him. We're taking care of Mother Gandhari. How will they live? And Narad Muni chastised him. Don't think that they're dependent on you. Don't think that they're dependent on you. Krishna's the source of maintenance for all living entities. So at the mature stage, we can think that it will go on. You know, this attachment takes various forms. I have to stay and continue to earn money so that the projects will go on. I have to continue and stay as a temple president or a trustee or a director or an officer because how will things go? Will things go on properly if I resign? I have so much experience. I have so much this and that. So one remains attached to his post. One remains attached to his job. And we can look at it and say, yes, this is for Krishna. But we can also look at it and say, this is an attachment. That you did that for so long. Now it's time to make way for others. To give up your post, to turn over your service to the next person, and you go on. You serve, as we heard, as an advisor. Take as they say, a backseat role. Why? To devote more time to direct activities of hearing, chanting, serving, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, so that at the time of death, one's mind will be absorbed. Yeah, it seems he's attached to the service of giving money as a doctor and would be worthless if he couldn't continue his service. Yeah, I know that sense. If I weren't doing this service, what would be the point of my life? If I weren't the temple president, if I weren't a BBT trustee, if I weren't the chief editor, if I weren't the fill in the blank, the project director, if I weren't the leader of the party, what would be the meaning of my life? And therefore it's difficult. It's difficult to resign. But at the mature stage, one has to think that it's my duty to turn things over. It's my duty to step back and turn things over and to find meaning in serving Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, by the activity, by, if I can, by preaching, by moving out, doing so many things. And Krishna will give us more. It's not that if I leave this post, there'll be nothing. My life will be worthless. If I'm not giving money, what would I be doing? Up to a certain stage, yes, in householder life, give money. Give money. That's your service. It may be your service. But at the mature stage, you'll not give money forever. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was, in essence, a millionaire. But he gave it up and went to Vrindavan to live as a beggar. And in that way, he became immensely enriched in devotional life. Even what to speak of his father and uncle were sending money to Jagannath Puri just to see that he'd be all right. And at first he was accepting it and using it to hold feasts for the Vaishnavas. But later he thought, no, what is this that I'm living on their money still? I've come to Puri and I'm still accepting their money. So he sent it back. So at the mature stage, the illusion that I'm dependent on this or that, or that others are dependent on me. Let me find that if I can, where Yudhisthira is hearing from Narada Muni. Just take a minute, I think, if I can get it right. If I'm lucky.
Maharaj, while you're looking that up, I just want to take the opportunity to invite the participants here to attend the class being given by Her Grace Bhagavati Dasi at the ISKCON of New Jersey channel, and I'll post a link to links for that. That's going to be at 8 p.m.
And of course, to Vamsidhari's Prabhu's classes on Saturdays, for which you can sign up. I think you're all quite aware of that.
Thank you.
Give me just 1 minute.
Vamsidhari Prabhu, if you could post your classes.
Yeah, I found what I was looking at. Therefore, give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. You are now, this is Yudhisthira, you, Yudhisthira, are now thinking of how they, who are helpless, poor creatures, will exist without you. Purport. When we think of our kith and kin as being helpless and dependent on us, it's all due to ignorance. Every living creature is allowed all protection by the order of the Supreme Lord, in terms of each one's acquired position in the world. The Lord is known as Bhuta Brit, one who gives protection to all living beings. One should discharge his duties only, for no one but the Supreme Lord can give protection to anyone else. This is explained more clearly in the following verse. This gross material body made of 5 elements is already under the control of eternal time, kala, action, karma, and the modes of material nature, guna. How then can it being already in the jaws of the serpent, protect others. Purport: the world's movements for freedom through political, economic, social, and cultural propaganda can do no benefit to anyone. For living beings are controlled by superior power. A conditioned living being is under the full control of material nature, represented by eternal time and activities under the dictation of different modes of nature. Unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, one cannot see things as they are. The passionate and the ignorant cannot even see things as they are. Therefore, a person who's passionate in ignorance cannot direct his activities on the right path. Only the man in the quality of goodness can help to a certain extent. Then, the highest perfectional project of philanthropic activities is to engage everyone in the act of preaching Bhakti Yoga all over the world, because that alone can save the people from the control of Maya or material nature. So this is, and I skipped part of that purport, which fits in well with some of my other concerns. But the point there is that Yudhisthira was thinking that these helpless creatures, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, are dependent on me. And Nard says, no, this is Maya. They're dependent on Krishna. Yes, and Shara says, yes, and maybe also to set an example to other devotees, to be good association. So not worthless, quite the opposite. Yes. All right, we traditionally stop at 8 or before, so that those who wish can switch over to the Tuaco channel. And therefore, we bid you goodbye for the evening, and we'll come back next Thursday.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the questions and comments, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Jai Advaita Swami ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful session again.
The Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Jai, Jai.
Gaura Premanande.
Hari Bol.